For roughly 200,000 years, human beings lived entirely as nomadic hunter-gatherers. We followed animal migrations, foraged for seasonal plants, and fashioned simple tools from chipped flint. Progress was incredibly slow, measured across hundreds of generations. Then, the timeline fractured. This illustrated map shows the cradle of civilization between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Within this pocket, society leaped forward. Foraging bands were replaced by highly organized city-states, massive ziggurats, complex irrigation grids, and written language. Look at the sheer scale of this reconstructed city. To pull this off, early Mesopotamians had to master urban planning, geometry, and agricultural logistics. Mainstream anthropology attributes this sudden leap to environmental pressures forcing human cooperation. But a vocal subset of alternative historians looks at the timeline and sees a mathematical impossibility. The math, they argue, points to outside help. This is the foundation of the ancient astronaut theory, the idea that our earliest advancements were handed down through extraterrestrial contact. This high-detail view of a cuneiform clay tablet represents what proponents claim is the source code of human history. The theory insists that we should stop reading these ancient texts as religious allegories and start reading them as literal, technical records. When you read the Sumerian texts as factual logs rather than primitive mythology, the gods disappear, and a highly advanced interstellar civilization steps into the light. According to this alternative translation, the visitors arrived from a planet called Nibiru. These beings were known to the Sumerians as the Anunnaki, those who came from the heavens to Earth. This mural depicts the three central figures of their hierarchy: Anu, the Sky Father, and his two sons, Enlil, the commander, and Enki, the chief scientist. The text suggests these visitors were not Anine explorers acting out of curiosity. They were facing an ecological collapse back home, and they came to our solar system desperate for a specific raw material, gold, which they needed to repair their failing atmosphere. Earth was essentially a cosmic strip mine. Under this lens, the earliest human accounts of serving the gods were actually describing an industrial extraction process overseen by extraterrestrial management. This reinterpretation transforms the gods of antiquity into planetary corporate overseers, managing Earth's resources as a logistical operation. But mining a planet is brutal work. The Anunnaki's own lower-class laborers eventually rebelled against the harsh conditions on Earth. The leadership needed a new, compliant workforce. Enki, the chief scientist, proposed a biological solution. He extracted Anunnaki genetic material and spliced it into the DNA of native hominids already wandering the Earth. The result of this genetic experiment was humanity. Our very first role on this planet was to serve as a specialized agricultural and mining workforce, toiling directly beneath the watchful eyes of our makers. Over time, humanity multiplied. Enki felt a paternal affection for his creations, but Enlil viewed us as a loud, chaotic, and dangerous infestation that was rapidly growing out of control. Enlil made the executive decision to wipe the slate clean by allowing a massive impending flood to wash the human experiment away. But Enki broke protocol, secretly leaking the survival plans to a select few. The construction of the Ark wasn't a divine trial of faith. It was a calculated, directed blueprint to preserve the genetic seeds of Enki's labor force before the water hit. The Great Global Flood myth, shared by dozens of disconnected ancient cultures, is reframed entirely. It was just collateral damage from a strategic disagreement between two alien brothers. After the waters receded, the Anunnaki allegedly helped their surviving creations rebuild, dividing the planet into specific administrative regions to manage the recovery. Proponents view the distinct deities of Egypt, Greece, and India as localized identities for the same Anunnaki administration. This theory suggests that across the globe, humanity was reporting to the same regional directors under different names. But eventually, the Anunnaki agenda was complete. Whether their atmosphere was repaired or the gold ran out, they packed up all their operations and departed, leaving humanity alone to manage the heavy machinery of civilization. Their departure created a vacuum, marking the transition into an era where humanity was forced to begin defining its own path without direct oversight. which brings us back to the ruins in the desert and the core conflict of modern historical interpretation. This brass scale perfectly illustrates the debate. On one side, the alluring theory of alien influence. On the other, the weight of pure human ingenuity. From an anthropological perspective, attributing the birth of civilization to extraterrestrials does a massive disservice to our ancestors. It assumes that early humans simply weren't smart enough or organized enough to figure out agriculture and engineering on their own. When you look closely at the ziggurat of Ur, you don't see laser cuts or anti-gravity propulsion. You see millions of hand-shaped, kiln-fired mud bricks. You see the physical reality of thousands of human beings sweating in the sun, calculating loads, and learning through trial and error. These physical remains suggest that while the myths look to the stars for inspiration, the foundation of civilization was laid by the grit and ingenuity of our own ancestors.